Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we made a pretty big trade sending Dadonov to the Carolina Hurricanes. We also simmed the rest of the season, and we didn't make the playoffs, which is good, but we also did get actually some pretty good results, which I think we could definitely take away as a positive for the season. So guys like Cameron stepped up a lot this year, which is huge. Hopefully that means the prospects on this team are going to continue to grow. You could see that Cameron had a career high in goals, assists, points. Pretty much everything was a career high for him, even like game-winning goals, short-handed points. His face-off stats are getting better every single season. He's throwing more hits, blocking more shots, taking away the puck more often. So Cameron is really developing into that complete player that I really wanted him to be. So very, very happy with that. Guys like Nathan McKinnon took a little bit of a step back, but in general, I've been pretty impressed with a lot of the young guys on this roster. And if we just continue to develop like this young team could definitely be a playoff team, hopefully in the next few years. So very excited to see what we look like going into next season, and hopefully we can continue to get more out of these guys as this team gets better. So excited to see what happens with that. Also, we got some pretty interesting results in terms of the playoff simulation. As you can see, the New York Rangers went on to win the Stanley Cup. They actually went on to beat the Los Angeles Kings in 7 games. So pretty realistic Cup finals considering this is the 2014-15 season. And obviously in real life in the 2013-14 season, there was the Rangers and Kings facing off in the Cup finals. But the Kings end up winning that Stanley Cup instead of the Rangers. So kind of like that results because obviously it's kind of interesting when we get those realistic results a little bit more. I do kind of like those random ones where random teams win, but it's also kind of interesting to kind of have my roster builds almost simulate like it's their actual counterparts. So very happy with how the simulation went for that season. But anyways, before we get into the draft and re-sign stage and maybe making some more tough decisions this offseason, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll see what we end up doing at this offseason. So the first and only comment is from Saturday Talk, who says the team got points in more than half of its games, so I would consider the season to be a success. It's also funny how Pittsburgh tied the 2023 Bruins with 65 wins and were bounced in the first round of the playoffs, just like the 2023 Bruins. Too bad Atlanta didn't make it to the finals. Don't run 2 starting goalies. Trade Danielson for some futures and either bring up or sign a backup. You can easily let go of your more fringe players via trade and free agency. Moz and the other Marcoux are the only 2 players that look interesting in this draft, basically, is what he's trying to say. So, yeah, this draft class really doesn't look that intriguing on paper. We'll come to it in a little bit, but he's saying to trade Danielson and for maybe some futures, which I think is actually not a bad idea. I wasn't thinking about maybe trading him away yet because I do like kind of having my goalies develop, but we do have Vasilevsky, who's 2 years younger, 4 overall points better already, so it doesn't really make sense for us to have 2 guys that are listed pretty much as starting goalies. So there is a chance that we might be changing backups again in this episode. Like maybe we could get a good return for Danielson and give him a chance to be a starter somewhere else in the NHL. So we'll probably look to flip him. Not too sure exactly what we'll get in exchange. Hopefully some decent picks for the future years or something like that. But yeah, we definitely will look into that in this episode. And like I was just saying, yeah, this draft class is quite weak. I don't really know if we're going to be able to find anything super good in it. But hopefully we could at least find some decent enough players for our team. Because there is obviously some good elite talent early on, but if you go to like late first round and stuff like that, like it looks like a pretty standard draft, but a lot of these guys are like, you got medium top 60, supposed to go late first round, which is not ideal. So definitely some of these players are not going to be super good on paper. There is a couple though, like he was mentioning Terrell Moss, who looks like he could be a pretty good defenseman. So there is a chance that we will probably try and find a way to get this guy. We might easily take some of these guys way earlier than they were anticipated to though, because technically we have a pretty high up pick, but a lot of the guys that look like they're going around our spot aren't very good. So to maybe go off the board and grab somebody like Moss instead might not be a bad idea. And then if we also sort by pinned players here, there's also Marcoux, who looks like he could be a pretty good steal for a late round pick. He is 20 years old at this point already and 5 years out, so he is going to be an quite old player when he makes the NHL likely. But he does have the potential to become a decent offensive defenseman, so we will at least take him. But aside from that, this draft class looks pretty mid on paper. There is this like forward named Karanin and all that, but I don't really know if we need forward prospects that much. It's mostly defensive prospects. And if you look at defensive prospects, for instance, and look at when they're supposed to go in this draft, you can see there's not really too much that's really intriguing. We could move up a spot if we really wanted to get Climby, but I don't know if it's going to be even worth it because Climby's not as good as that guy that's even supposed to go late first round. So we probably will end up just going maybe a little bit off the board if we really want to, and we could probably take that defenseman instead in Moss if we want really early, or maybe we could try and get a early first rounder for some of our second rounders, something like that, so we could get him as one of our selections, because maybe one of these other defensemen that are unknown are actually pretty decent. Like, I don't know about Metropolitan. He looks like he could be decent, but he does have a weakness. Kachuk is a standard top 4 defenseman. Like, in general, this class is probably one of the worst classes we've seen up to this point in time. So hopefully we can still get some good prospects in, because obviously we need some maybe more defensive prospects. We don't really need more forward prospects, but at least on the defensive side of things, we need a little bit of help there. So anyways, that is that. Let's hop on into this draft and see what we're able to snag up here. Because right now we have, I think it was the 9th overall selection or 10th. I can't remember exactly. Let me see where we're drafting. Yeah, we have 9th overall in this draft. If we go to our draft board, we do have a lot of selections in this draft. So I'm thinking of maybe, packaging these 2 second rounders to get a late first if we can. And we could draft something else with our first round pick if we really want to. That's at 9th, and just take a chance on a random defensive prospect. So I'm going to see if we could find a way to get Moss. We could draft Moss very early if we really want to. But we could always try and take him instead where he's actually supposed to go around. So he's not supposed to go all the way until it was 30th. So we could probably grab like a 28th overall pick and easily grab him. So if we go to 28th, does the team that has that pick want to move it? The answer is yes, they do. So it's Chicago that we'd be making a trade with. So let's talk to Chicago maybe and see if we give them both our second rounders, if they would be willing to give us that late first round pick. Now we do have a pretty early, I think, second rounder. Yeah, we do have 2. Actually, maybe not even both our second rounders is too much value. Maybe like if I gave up 38. Yeah, actually, let's say I give up 44, and then I give up like a random late pick. Like if I give up 128, is that enough to move up that spot? Because like maybe we just go something like that instead. Like we don't need to give up second rounders that much, I guess. But let's see if that works. Rejected. Okay, so they'd want a more than a 5th round pick. Not really surprised. Trying to see what we could get. Maybe a 4th rounder involved. That's still rejected. Okay, what about if I gave you the 3rd from Tampa? Because we have so many picks anyways, it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, that's accepted. So a 2nd and a 3rd is enough to move up into the 1st round and grab that defenseman in the late 1st round instead. We do still have 9th overall. So we could take another player there around that point. Who else is supposed to go around 9th? Like, do we want to move up in this draft at all? Like, Climby is supposed to go maybe 1 spot above our pick. But if we don't go with Climby, we could always just go for Ted Metropolitan and see if he's actually that good. He's probably a top 4 at least. He shouldn't be anything worse than that, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll probably take Metropolitan with our own 1st round pick, because I don't think Climby is going to be available. We could try and move up if we really wanted to, but I don't think it's worth it. And then the other 1st round pick, we're going to probably go off the board. Actually, not really off the board, I guess. We're going to take Terrell Moss with the second 1st round pick we have now. And then after that, I honestly don't know what we're going to go with, but we will probably hold on to a couple of our picks. Some of them we might honestly just trade away for next year, just because it's not really worth holding on to. Another thing we got to do, let's actually just simulate through Phoenix's pick here so that way we don't get interrupted. But let's go find trade and see if there's any potential deals for Danielson and see if we can maybe get anything good back in terms of future prospects. The only trade getting thrown at us right now is the Islanders are willing to give up their 35th pick this year and 83rd in this year as well. That's not really worth it to me. But if the Islanders have interest, we could definitely swing a deal with them. But I would prefer to take a 1st round pick back. I don't think they would be willing to give up a 1st rounder for next year because they've been drafting so high. So I prefer maybe a 2nd rounder next year. And they were offering me a third before as well, but let's say a second for next year and a third and see if that works. Like, if that does, that's probably good enough. Obviously, it would be nice to get a first rounder, but I don't think it's realistic. It seems really hard to trade for first rounders in this universe up until the draft, at least. So, Danielson for a second and a third from the New York Islanders. Those should be early seconds and early thirds. We could easily use these in trades as well. Will this work? And the answer is just a bit low. So we could literally add in a draft pick of our own for this year that we don't need. So we do have some extra thirds and extra fourths. So let's give them Philadelphia's fourth for this year because we do not need that pick. And then it's basically, it should work. It should work. So let's try this. Danielson and a fourth for a second and a third. And that's accepted. Perfect. Nice little deal there with the Islanders. Danielson's on his way to Long Island. I think that's a good little deal for them. They do get themselves now a goalie prospect, which I think they drastically needed, right? I guess they didn't really need fully, but if you look at their goaltending depth, I think this is a deal that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, they still have DiPietro signed for a few years. Corey Schneider's a pending free agent. Mikko Koskinen's a pending free agent, unless he has an extension, which he does not in place right now. They do have a medium backup who's not going to really develop too much. Salio probably doesn't develop. And then this Hainsey guy, he's pretty low for an elite goalie at 20 years old. So I think Danielson should get an opportunity to be the starter there. They'll probably use DiPietro now as the backup because he's signed in next season, which means Schneider and Koskinen might be both heading to the free agent market. So there's our trade with the Islanders. I think that's the only trade we're really going to make at this year's draft. But I'm excited for our selections here, even though this draft class, like I said, isn't the strongest on paper. Who was the other player that was interesting? Was Marcoux, and he's not supposed to go till quite late, so don't need to worry about him right now. But let's see this year's top five anyways. So Phoenix at number one took Wong. Let's take a brief look at him, and then we'll take a look at Mikonov, who just went to Detroit. But here is Jeffrey Wong, a.k.a. Connor McDavid. Basically, in this universe, he would be. But yeah, he looks like this. Sniper with shock and awe. Pretty basic, nothing close to Connor McDavid. And then you also have Alexander Mikonov, or what was it pronounced as? Mikonov? I can't remember what Jared said. I think it's Mikonov. I can't remember. Because the H is silent or something like that. But yeah, anyways, he goes to Detroit with Make It Snappy. So Detroit starting off their rebuild with a decent prospect. Toronto at 3 is going to select Millman, who's actually as good as the first overall selection, so that's an interesting one. Leonard Millman. Toronto's built up a decent young team at times, so kind of interested to see where this guy slots in for them, but there is Leonard Millman. All right. Minnesota at 4 is going to select Gagliardi, who's also an 83 overall, so solid top 5 in terms of overall ratings. Shannon Gagliardi finds himself in Minnesota. Looks pretty good as a sniper as well, and he has big rig wheels and Make It Snappy. So maybe a sniper that kind of plays a little bit more like a power forward, so kind of interesting. And St. Louis at number 5, who has new jerseys as of this recording. Literally, I'm recording today. They announced their new jerseys. They actually look pretty sick. Kind of remind me of the old Blues from like the Red Berenson days. But here is Pavel Vrolov, looking solid, like a left wing playmaker. Okay. And let's simulate to our pick at number 9. All right, so yeah, Climby did just go one spot above ours, which I was expecting that. I could have tried to move up, but I don't know if he would have been worth it. 65 at 18, medium 4, DFD, pretty solid. But will he become something good? Probably not, because he was just drafted by the Sabres. All right, so our pick at number 9 here. We could go for Bill Johnston, who actually looks solid too. He's probably a 65 top 6. I think we got to go with the defenseman, even though I think, Karanen looked good, though. It's hard to not pass up on Karanen, though, because him being like a medium 6 that's NHL ready is kind of nice, but we really do not need center prospects. Like, if we look at our center depth at the moment and our forward depth, we have just way too much of it. Because if we go offer trade, for instance, you just think about our center core right now. We have, like, Cameron, we have McKinnon, we have Marcoux. Technically, Jacobs might be a center at some point, who knows. We also have already some other center prospects. Kadri's probably getting let go of this offseason. We have Burmistrov. So I just don't think it's worth drafting that guy, even though he is NHL ready. It just would make our depth chart even harder to negotiate with players. So we're going to go for Ted Metropolit. just because he is technically, I guess, the second best defenseman in this draft class based on ranking. So, Ted Metropolitan, welcome to the Edmonton Oilers, and hopefully you're a decent player. 78! Wow, okay, that's way better than anticipated. We didn't have this guy scouted at all, really, so I was not expecting his overall to be NHL ready. That's absolutely huge, and he has an X factor too, so despite me thinking this draft class was going to be incidentally weak, Ted Metropolitan is a very, very nice pickup. And him as a shutdown DFD similar to Holinka, I like that pickup a lot. We could put these guys next to offensive defensemen, and it would work out really well. So that's actually quite nice. That adds to our blue line for next season already, which means we have tough decisions to make on the blue line side of things as well, probably. But, wow, was not expecting Metropolitan to be that high. When Climby went before, I was thinking this guy, oh, he's probably just a guaranteed 65 top 4. But instead, he's an NHL-ready top 4, basically. So, and the fact that he has an X Factor is also really nice. Did Climby have any X Factors? He did not. So, Buffalo just made a really bad selection, I guess. But we are definitely the beneficiaries of a really nice prospect. So, I like that a lot. That's definitely going to help out with the depth chart quite a bit on the defensive side of things. All right, let's assimilate to our next pick at 28. We'll see what went before selection. Now that we have a late first rounder as well, we should be able to get that other defenseman too. Not that we really needed it maybe now at this point, but what went before this selection, just in case you guys wanted to see if there was any steals or anything or any crazy names. Let me know if you see any crazy names that you want to bring up, but it looks like a pretty standard draft class after our selection. This is what the Tkachuk guy looked like, 64 medium 4. That's what I expected Metropolitan to be like, but no. Karanen was a 79 medium 6. Damn, see, this would have been a really nice addition, but like I said, with the amount of like centers we have on this roster, he wasn't going to really fit that well into our team right now. We would have had to probably get rid of Burmistrov if we brought him in, so that's why I didn't draft him instead. Ryan Precht was a 72. That's solid. But yeah, Metropolitan, definitely the early steal of the draft, which is nice. All right, so our next selection at 28, obviously we could go for another random dude that we don't have scouted, but we're not going to gamble on it. There's also Valery Denisov, wouldn't take him probably. And then, yeah, obviously I think Moss has to be the guy that we take. He's a guaranteed two-way defenseman too, which is kind of nice because we do have DFDs, we have offensive defensemen, we don't have a lot of two-way prospects. So Terrell Moss is going to be joining the team as well. He should be a pretty solid overall. It says he might be NHL ready, so I'm expecting a 76 to 78. So similar to that guy we took in the early stages of the first round. So I think we got to go for him. Obviously, there's like guys like Duncan too, but Duncan's medium 6 guaranteed. So we are going to go for Terrell Moss with this selection, and hopefully he is a decent overall for a two-way. Let's see. And he's a 76. Yeah, that's kind of exactly where I was expecting. 76 to 78, I said. And here is Terrell Moss. No X factors, but another good defensive prospect to add to our pool. So our offensive core is looking already good. Defensive core is getting much better. Goaltending is looking solid. I think we're starting to build up quite the team. And I'm very excited to see what our team is going to be looking like going into next season. And if we could find a good coach that actually matches our players a lot. If not, we could always scheme fit some of our players. But I think this team could be a playoff team relatively soon in the next few years if we keep on doing stuff like this. So that's a pretty nice little selection there at number 28. All right, let's assimilate to our next pick. Actually, how much more picks do we got in this year's draft? Because I know the rest of this draft didn't really look strong on paper. I know we are going to be drafting Marcoux probably with like a 6th round pick or something. So we don't really need that extra 3rd round pick this year. We could use our 2nd and 3rd. But if I go find trade on that extra 3rd rounder, is there a team that would give me something for next year instead? Because I honestly don't need 74th that much. 4th and a 7th. Wow, there's actually a lot more offers than I expected. God damn. Is there anybody that's willing to just give me a 3rd rounder for next year instead of a 4th and a 7th? I don't really want to move back in this year's draft. At least that astronomically. There is some random like medium top 6 defensive prospects, but they're not medium 4s. Montreal was willing to give us a 4th and a 7th for next year. I don't know if that's really worth it either. We might honestly just have to hold on to that selection. Like, there is some okay prospects, but most are medium 9s, medium fringe starters, that type of thing. Tanner Pearson is a high 9, probably not going to develop if he is going to be willing to go in for a 3rd round pick. Joakim Ryan's not really much of anything. There's this Olas guy who's unsigned at the moment. We don't need 4 prospects whatsoever, so anyone that involves a 4 prospect's an automatic no. Do I want to trade for a defensive prospect like these guys? Probably not, because I feel like it might make us too much defenders in our system. Yeah, I don't think I'll trade it. I think I'll just make some selections and see if I make actually any good selections with these picks. But let's simulate to our next pick at 38. See what we get snag up here. We're in the 2nd round now. See if we can find anything here. We do have McClement pinned as a goalie prospect. Now that we traded away Danielson, we don't have as much goalie prospects, so maybe drafting McClement's not a bad idea. I know Vasilevsky's technically our guy right now. McClement's 3 years out at 19, which is not really that bad. He's going to have a probably solid starting overall, like a 65 or something like that. There's a lot of other goalie prospects supposed to go around this point. And then there's a couple other defensemen, which this guy could be 2 years out, but probably not, my guess. And then there's Jaffrey, which we don't know anything about. I feel like our scouts didn't do a great job. Unless we don't have scouts in the WHL, I don't really know. But, I think I might go for the goalie just for the trade value, potentially. Unless I want to use him down the road, but... yeah, I think we're going to go for the goalie prospect. Like I said, I don't really need goalie prospects that astronomically, but since we traded Danielson, we might as well draft one. And if we decide earlier that we want to move out from this guy, we can. So, Ricardo McClement joins the Oilers. Boom. And yeah, 64 overall medium elite goalie. Expected him to be around that point. And there was a medium elite 4 that literally just went right before. Damn, I wish I'd have seen this guy. Keith Buss. Damn. That's a nice pick up there for the Flyers. But here's McClement, just in case you guys wanted to see McClement. Looks pretty solid. But yeah, that's a huge steal by Philadelphia there. I wish I'd have known about that guy. We don't really need the forward help, though, so I guess it's not something that was drastically needed on this roster. But would have been nice to know if there was a random medium elite there. All right. Let's simulate to our next selection at 68 now and see if we can find anything in this 3rd round. We do have 2 picks in this round, remember? So hopefully we can find something good here. Glenn Cross, he's technically the best Erie Otter in this draft class, I think, which means he's technically the Connor McDavid of this draft in a way, even though he's a defenseman. Probably not that good. He's probably a medium 6, just like Malden and like Bazina, my guess. So he's not probably worth taking. I mean, some medium 6s could be useful. There is a guy that could be a lowly power forward in Delorier, so I guess we'll take a chance on him, even though we don't really need forward prospects. This guy could be something good down the middle or on the wing eventually too. I don't really need more forwards help, like I said, but there's either that or we go for Keaton Collins, which almost looks like King Kong for some reason, but let's go for Francois Delorier with this selection. And he's a low top 6 grinder. That's kind of a weird one. I don't mind that actually, because maybe if he doesn't develop, considering he's a low 6 only, maybe he develops into being more of a bottom 6 grinder option, which would be useful for like kind of playoff scenarios and being good defensively on the 4th line. So I will definitely take that. It's not a bad selection, but it's not a great selection, of course. Like by comparison to our other picks for sure. Our next selection here, can we find anything that could be good? Guaranteed medium 9, Guillermo Stewart, 19 years old. There's another defenseman in Maxime Durand. Probably a medium 4 or a low 4, or a medium 6 for that matter even. We don't really need to draft more goalie prospects, but there is Fane, who is probably decent. There's a gem in a goaltender in Messias, but like I said, I don't really need goalie prospects that much that I add so many of them. There's a low 4, that's a guaranteed gem in Jonathan Reynolds. Some low 4s develop nicely. I think I'm going to go for the low 4 just because he's a gem. I know it's kind of a weird one because low 4s sometimes don't pan out, but he is a lefty that shoots right, so maybe he's a guy we can play on both sides if he does develop. So Jonathan Reynolds is going to be our next selection. Boom. And he's a 63 overall, so pretty similar to that low top 6 we just drafted. We'll see if he ends up developing though, but it does give us at least more prospects on the defensive side of things. All right, let's see. Is there anybody actually I want to trade before I go to the free agency portion? Because I do want to let go of a lot of people. on this roster. Is there anybody that's signed into next year that I don't want? Boone Jenner can make it. Cody Hodgson's going to be just let it go of probably. Lander, I could let go of. Riley Nash, I could let go of. Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys I could just pretty much let go of. I don't have to really sign them. There is Hagelin into next season. Maybe we could try and get something for Hagelin and Abdelkader right now since they're both signed in next season. That might not be a bad idea. Let's actually go to Hagelin and Abdelkader because those are two guys that could probably get parted ways with this offseason. So if I put both of them in a trade, what could I get for both these dudes? 4th and a 7th. I don't really want any players right now. A 3rd and a 7th rounder this year. I don't need an extra 7th this year, but the 3rd's kind of nice. Let's see. Anybody just willing to give me some future picks, like a 3rd in the future? 4th and a 5th from Montreal. Yeah, I kind of like that 3rd and a 7th. There's also this one, but I don't want 4 prospects, really. Let's see. High 9 and Ola still. I think I might come back to that 3rd and the 7th one from the Bruins and just get rid of the 7th rounder because I don't need the 7th rounder this year. So, you know what, Boston, you got a deal. Take these 2 bottom 6 guys for me. We'll take a 3rd rounder for next year. Boom. Okay, so a couple players dealt from the bottom 6. Anybody else I need to move ways with? Because like I said, the bottom 6 is going to get reworked a bit this offseason, so that's why I just traded away both those guys. I do like Abdelkader and Hagelin, but might as well flip them away because Barchi can make it that way. Lochte might make it, stuff like that. Right wing side of things, is there anybody to get rid of? That's signed for too many years. Not really. And I mean, there's Andrew Shaw maybe, but yeah, I think that should be fine. So that might be the only players we get rid of this offseason. Let's simulate to our next pick anyways at 98th. See if we can find anything in these later rounds. Right defenseman, Maximilian Hansen. Love the name, Maximilian. There's also Holt, who could be elite. Stan Holt. Don't really need a forward that much. I might go for Hansen just because he's a right D-man. Yeah, let's go for Hansen, sure. And he's a top 6. Well, he's not the craziest, but still maybe he could develop into being something for us. He has the potential to. If not, he could be maybe a decent AHLer. Couple more selections. We do have to make the selection with Marcoux still, which I don't remember when he's supposed to go. Not supposed to go till, like, yeah, 7th round. We could easily take him in, probably. But I might even take him in round 6. Matheson could be a low lead. He's a 20-year-old defenseman, though, so But we could just keep drafting defensemen if we really want to. There's also Grayson Richmond. Don't know about that. Anybody with decent potential that's still on the board other than Marcoux? Not guaranteed, but there is some people that could be a low lead. So we'll take a chance on Laliberte, and we'll take a chance on Reinprecht, and then Marcoux as well. We'll take a bunch of defenders this year and just hope that they're actually decent. Hey, Laliberte is a low lead offensive defenseman, but he is older at this point, so I don't think he's going to become much, but maybe becomes something at the AHL level or barely makes the NHL. But I'll still take him for his potential at least. And then let's go back to sorting this by potential again. We'll take that other guy that could be a low lead that's 3-bar scouted, Philip Reinprecht. We'll take him with this selection, and then Marcoux will be the last selection we make. Reinprecht's also a low 4, 60 overall. Decent starting point. Once again, don't know if he'll develop. And our last selection of the draft, I know we've drafted a ton of defensemen, but this is definitely what we need mostly. Like, there could be some good forwards and good goalies, but I'd rather just grab a bunch of defense and hope that some of them pan out. So Reese Marcoux is going to be this last selection. He's the lowly gem. Boom. 52 overall, also an offensive defenseman, so we do have a lot of OFDs in our system. Obviously, a lot of them probably won't develop. Like, I don't think Marcoux is going to develop, unfortunately, just because he's too low of an overall for a 20-year-old. But at least, like I said, it gives us more depth, just in case we can't really find another defenseman for the future. So that is our draft. I'd say a pretty solid draft. It wasn't crazy, of course, but getting Metropolitan is a big plus. I didn't expect him to be that good, so that one's definitely a win. Moss is great. McClement as an elite goalie probably could be a good trade bait or maybe a goalie prospect of the future. Aside from that, a lot of the other picks are kind of up in the air, like they're low sixes, low top fours, and some low elites. But we'll see if those guys end up developing. I think obviously the first two picks were the best ones. McClement, like I said, I think could be a good pick just for the value more. But obviously depends on how he develops as well. So that is our draft in 2015. Now let's get to the re-sign stage and make some tough decisions with who to let go of. But for the most part, a lot of our top 6 and top 9 should be back. There's going to be some changes, though, obviously next season in our bottom 6. Because our bottom 6 has kind of like been a work in progress for most of this franchise mode so far up to this point. So let's get these scouts back, though, because we got to make sure they're re-signed. But yeah, our WHL scouts really didn't do a good job this season. We could always try and upgrade our scouts more so, but I don't think it's something that's super necessary. Because I feel like we're still drafting quite well for the most part. I know that we're sometimes getting blinded about how good players are, like Sharma, for instance, when we thought he was going to be a low bottom 6 first rounder, and he ended up being a medium 6, which is weird. I don't know if that was a glitch still, or if that was intended to be like that. Alright, Callahan. Uriel Callahan. I think that might be almost it for scouts. Also, we could look for some new coaches too soon if we really want to. Because obviously if we find a coach that's a better fit with this young team, we could definitely go further and get back into the playoffs potentially too at some point. Alright, re-sign stage. Let's see what we got here. $32 million in cap space. For unsigned prospects, obviously we're going to be signing Metropolitan. He's good enough to play on our blue line probably next season, or he could be back in junior. I don't think he's going to go to the AHL, but maybe the game could allow him to. There's also Terrell Moss, who is AHL eligible. He's definitely getting signed. And we also do have Tremblay from last year as well. I almost forgot about him. He's also an offensive defenseman, but he's not AHL eligible, I don't think, but I could still give him his ELC, so we're going to just do that just to give ourselves more of our defensive prospects, so sign him up. Everybody else is going to be unsigned still for a while, so we'll leave that. RFAs, we have a lot of RFAs. We'll come back to that in a second. UFAs, most of the guys that are UFAs in the NHL are going to be let go of here. So Riley Nash, for instance, he's only 26 years old. Could be a solid bottom 6 guy, but we have guys that we can replace him with. So Riley Nash, we're going to let you go to free agency. We're also going to be letting go of BJ Crombie in our cap whale for now. We could bring him back if we need another cap whale, but we're going to let him walk. Liam Reddix was just more of an AHL filler. We're going to let him walk. And we're also going to let go of Alex Plant from the AHL just to free up some roster space. All of these guys almost are going to get their ELCs. We do have Holden, who needs one for sure as a forward prospect. There's also Mackey, who's going to be playing in the AHL next year. He needs his. Kachuk is a low for a 69 at 20. That's a pretty solid overall. But I feel like it's not really something we need to sign. He could probably make the NHL if he keeps developing like this, but I'm not sure if he's a huge prospect. There is this low lead Rodriguez, who's also a defenseman, so we'll sign him for sure. Nelson's pretty much at the same boat as Kachuk as a forward. And then Rosa has medium elite potential, but he's only 22, or he's already 22 and he's only 64. I'm going to sign him, but he's likely going to be trade bait. We definitely could just trade him away next episode, I think, because I don't think he's going to develop into that elite potential. So I think we're going to let go of Kachuk and Nelson, though, since they don't look like they're going to pan out, really. I mean, Kachuk could, but we'll let him walk because we have so many defensive prospects already. And then from the RFAs here, we're going to go to the bottom of this list first and foremost. Gagliardi, I mean, he's okay. Johnson is not really high potential. We're going to let go of Johnson just to free up some more roster room again. And we will sign Veshy back because he's a solid overall for an AHL defender. And Gagliardi will hold on to as well, I guess, for that matter. But we are going to have to let go of some people here. Safronov's pretty much an NHL defenseman too. We're going to just sign him up because he's got potential. But I think we're going to let go of these 3 guys for sure, which is Cody Hodgson, Magnus Payarvi, and Anton Lander. I just don't have the room for so many forward players, I feel like. So let's send Hodgson to free agency without qualifying him. Same goes with Magnus Payarvi, and same goes with Anton Lander. We just got to free up some roster space, man. And We are definitely going to be signing Fada back up because he should be making the NHL's a fourth liner this season. So we'll see if he'll accept that. Barchi might be making the NHL this season, so we'll sign him up for a 2-year deal, sure. And he accepts it already. The rest of these guys probably could get longer-term deals. Maybe Marcoux wants a 2-way deal. That's kind of surprising that Marcoux only wants a 2-way. Because I was prepared to give him a 1-way. How many years does he want? Like, if I go to 5+ years, like, he looks like we could get him for a 5-year deal at under $1 million if we really wanted to. Because I think he's a useful NHLer, and I think he's only going to get better. I know this is a really risky deal, but hey, this is not too much money. It's not like he has a clause involved. Let's just try and get this guy on one of the dirt cheapest contracts of all time. So, 6 years, 7 years, drops down a little bit. I could literally get him on an 8-year deal at probably $900,000 almost. I don't know if I should do 8 years. It would be a movable deal for every single team in the league. Like, they probably would be okay with it. And it's not going to break our bank. You know what? We're going to offer this to Marcoux. I think I like him as a bottom six, short-handed kind of guy. A guy that maybe gets some power play time as well. He could be replaced at some point, maybe. But, like I said, this is a movable contract. Let's give him an 8-year deal at $850,000 and see if he would take it. Because, I mean, if he's going to be on board for under $1 million for 8 years, I mean, that's maybe the biggest steal contract of all time. Aside from that, though, we are going to be probably letting go of Kadri. He doesn't really want that much. He doesn't have the organizational interest, though. And I just think he wasn't that great this season. 35 points is okay. Was a career high for him. But he's been a defensive liability. And, yeah, we have other guys that could replace him. So, let's let Kadri walk. And then we have Falk and Foley to bring back, and Tuomainen. We'll get Tuomainen easily back here. So, let's just do that. But Toffoli and Falk, I would like to get Toffoli on a long-term deal potentially here, because he could be in our top 6 this season. He wants a 4-year deal with a clause at the end of it. I'm okay with giving him what he's asking for. I think that's a decent deal. It's a nice little trial run to see how he is. Obviously, he would be a UFA at the end of it, though, so hopefully we could get him back after this point. But we'll sign him for what he's asking for. And Justin Falk's one of our best defensemen right now. He doesn't have a lot of organizational interest. I'm going to give him what he's asking for as well. I know I could qualify them and try and get them for less, but I'd prefer to have some of these guys like signed up for at least a few years before we think about trading them away potentially. So let's advance today and see if those RFAs accept. Looks like a lot of guys are re-signing, which is good to see. So Falk rejected. Okay. Marcoux is on board with the 8-year deal at $850K. So shout out to Kenny Marcoux, who is on a steal of a contract. Toffoli rejects the offer as well. And then Tuomainen accepts. And Rosa rejected his ELC. He wants to sign with a team that's going for the Stanley Cup, but he's not even an NHL player right now. That's strange. And Fodder also rejected. Why are these guys rejecting who've never played an NHL game too? That's kind of strange. They all have a lot of lower organizational interest. So one way to maybe get them to accept is just giving them a lot more money. So let's try and get Fada on a $950K contract instead. And then we're going to try and still get Falk and Toffoli signed up. I know they don't have the organizational interest, but they should be willing to accept money like this. Falk is a decent enough defenseman that this contract isn't that bad either. So we'll go 5.85 for 6 years, see if we can get him for a little bit more money. And then, like I said, I do like Toffoli. I will give him the 4-year deal, and we'll give him 4.4 on the dot. I think that's a decent contract. And aside from that, Rosa rejecting his ELC isn't a huge loss for me, but I want him for the trade bait, which is the funny thing. He rejected a max ELC too. Like, let's try and offer him that again and see if he'll accept. If he doesn't accept, like I said, it's not a huge loss for me, because he's not going to really fit this team anyways eventually down the road. Like, I was thinking of trading him anyways. But it does suck because I would like his trade value, but he doesn't look like he's going to pan out anyways, so it's not a huge loss if we have to actually let him go. All right, so we got some notifications here. So Falk rejects again, Toffoli rejects again, and Rosa did reject again, but Fada is on board. So good to see Fada on board. I don't want Toffoli and Falk ending up like Sam Gagner here, so we gotta maybe give Toffoli $5 million for 4 years. It's a bit of a pricey contract right now, but we do need to hit the floor anyways, so it's not a huge loss. And then Falk, I will give you $6 million because you are one of our best defensemen right now. And then yeah, UFA wise, I don't think it's worth even trying to persuade Rosa more about our organization. He's a terrible prospect. He doesn't want to come here because he doesn't think this team's good enough. But he's not even NHL ready yet. Like, he'd be playing down in the minors regardless. The only thing I want him for is the trade value, but he won't accept his ELC. So, Rosa, enjoy free agency. I know you're a good prospect and all. Hope you get a chance to go play somewhere, but you're not going to become something crazy. And if you come back to bite me in the ass and come and win a Stanley Cup against me or something like that, I am actually going to be pissed off at you, man. Like, I want your trade value, and that's all I want. I don't want you as a player. I could trade you after I sign you, but you don't want to come here. Anyways, will Toffoli and Falk accept their contracts now? Looks like Toffoli did, but Falk rejected. Come on, Falky. I will give you more than $6 million. I'll give you $6.5 million. We'll give you an extra $1 million. It is a movable contract. There'll be teams interested in him. I don't really care too much. And the salary cap's probably going up anyways, so let's see if they accept those contracts. And Falk finally accepts. Okay, perfect. So we have $23 million in cap space, and we have what of a team so far? If we go forwards right now, we have, sorted by overall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which means on the outs, potentially Yakupov, Latty, Andrew Shaw. Wow, we have a lot of guys still listed as depth forward, so we could still make probably some more trades in next episode, but I want your guys' opinion on who to prioritize bringing back to this roster for the bottom 6. Because right now I'm picturing the first line being either McKinnon or Cameron. The other one will be the second line. Second line, Jacob Moss will be playing right wing. Burmistrov could be playing center. Marcoux could be playing center still. Boone Jenner could be playing center or left wing. He is a great face-off man, but we could put him next to Marcoux or next to Burmistrov. Lowry's definitely still AHL bound, or he's unsigned still, so that's our only centers. Every one of them in the NHL. Left wing side of things is definitely going to be Nyquist playing left or right wing. Barchi definitely could play left wing or right wing. Latty's probably going to be NHL bound. I'm guessing he's going to get some jump. He was a second round pick, so we should probably get him into the bottom 6 maybe. There's Brock McGinn. I don't think Brock McGinn's ready yet, but we could use him if we really want to as a depth option. And then right wing side of things, Toffoli's going to be playing for sure. Same with Eberle. Like, these two guys are definitely going to be our top 6 right wingers. Fada is going to be probably a 4th line or 3rd line right wing. We could play him as a left winger too if we want. And we have Nishushkin, who should be probably NHL bound. But we also do have Yakupov, who should be NHL bound. So I'm not too sure on that. Andrew Shaw could be a depth forward probably. So we might have to make a decision on trading between Yakupov and Nishushkin maybe. Or somebody else like Latty, Barchi could probably get dealt. Jenner, somebody like that. So we have a lot of decisions on the forward side of things still to do. It's good that we let go of Hodgson and all that. From a defensive standpoint, we have Falk and Petrie, Russell, Holinka, Savard, and Metropolit. That's not bad, but I do want Zherdev to be playing. Maz and Safronov could be back in the AHL. I feel like Safronov's kind of capped out, which is not great. He played an NHL season, but I think what we have to think about doing is probably moving out from Chris Russell now. Probably. He is a pending free agent, because that way we could run Falk and Holinka, Petrie, and Metropolit, Savard, and Zherdev, something like that. I'm not too sure. But Zherdev definitely needs to be playing, so yeah, somebody on the defensive core needs to go. I'm leaning towards Russell, or maybe we can move out from Petrie. But he is a right D-man. He is still signed here for another 2 seasons after this upcoming season. So it's your guys' decision on that. And then from a goaltending standpoint, we do need a backup behind Vasilevsky. That's probably the only thing we need. So we need a goalie. And then defensively, we probably could use... I feel like we could honestly just use Safronov as a depth defenseman at this stage. He is a depth defender. I wouldn't use Maz as a depth defender because he's a young prospect, but Safronov played for us 2 years ago. Went back to the AHL, had a good year, but he's not really fully NHL talented. Like, he's got good shot blocking and stick checking, but his defensive awareness sucks for a DFD, so I think we could use Safronov as depth, and then we play Shurdev, Metropolit, Safard, Russell, and Holinka, Petrie, and Falk. We trade away Russell. We could have traded away Savard too, because he is a pending UFA too, for that matter. So, yeah, definitely some decisions on the defensive side of things. So, defense, I'd say, is pretty much set in stone. Goalies are set in stone, other than a backup. And in forwards, we probably already have our forward group. We probably have to make a decision with trading away somebody, or else they might be scratched or back in the AHL. And then, yeah, we need a backup for sure. So let's go to view the free agents available for this 2015 offseason going into the 2015-16 season. See if there's anything crazy. But let's go to sign free agents and see what's available. We'll also take a look at the trading block just in case. But for goalies that are available in free agency, the big one, Henrik Lundqvist, is a free agent after winning the Stanley Cup with the Rangers. I am surprised on that he's actually leaving the Rangers this early. Damn. That's a pretty substantial goalie free agent. Probably one of the biggest goalie free agents we've seen since Martin Brodeur, at least. He had a really good season this year. The year before, not so much. Like, the Rangers weren't doing good early on in this universe, but now they've won a Stanley Cup. He's looking for a lot of money at 33 years old. So it'll be interesting to see where he signs. Aside from that, Pascal Leclerc's there, Corey Schneider. There's Philip Grubauer, who we traded. For some reason, I guess the Bruins didn't want to hold on to him after the season. I guess he was pretty bad in Boston. But poor Philip Grubauer is already going to have to find his third team at the age of 23. There's Peter Budaj, Mikko Koskinen, Eric Erzberg. So there is some backup options. Erzberg is 33 years old at this point. I feel like Koskinen as a backup might not be a bad idea. He's young at this point still. Was pretty good in Bridgeport last season. Has played some NHL time and has been relatively good in it. He's not that bad and he doesn't want a lot of money. So Mikko Koskinen joining the Oilers a bit early might not be a bad idea. Aside from that, there's a couple other younger goalies though, like Michael Neuwirth that we could bring in. Dan LaCosta. We don't need somebody super high. And we could bring in Calvin Pickard. Captain Picard. That'd be funny. 23 years old and 76, so he is still developing. That'd be interesting to bring him in. So Colorado drafted him in this universe, and yeah, he's not. He's developed into being a solid minor starting goalie. I feel like he's pretty much realistic to where he was at this point in real life. There's also Justin Pogge for the memes if we wanted to bring him in. Stuff like that. Damn, Andrew Raycroft is continuing to drop off. Poor guy. Aside from that, defensively, not that we need defensive help too much, I don't think right now. Mark Stahl's the best free agent defenseman, so Mark Stahl just left the Rangers, I think? Yeah, he just won a Stanley Cup too and left the Rangers, so the Rangers won a Stanley Cup and immediately lost a bunch of people, which is not great for Kucherov and his team. But Jack Johnson's available as well, John Michael Lyles, Brian Campbell. There is some okay, good veteran defensemen, but we don't need defensive help that much because of the players we just drafted in this episode. So yeah, I don't think we'd bring any of these guys in really, but there is some good options out there. Aside from that, from a right-wing perspective, Dadonov is heading to free agency, so we dealt Dadonov away. And see, it's good that we let him go, traded him away when we did, because I don't think we would have been re-signing him this offseason. But he went on to Carolina, only put up 6 points in 14 games with them, so he didn't get utilized super well. Doesn't look like he got any power play time. Got like 2 less minutes of ice time as well. But he did get a chance to play with the Canes this season and didn't make the playoffs. So unfortunate for the guy. He's back in free agency again. You also have Chris Stewart, Martin Erat, who was, I think, just playing on a top line with some really good players on it. Who was it again? That was in Nashville. Oh, Barkov, and who did they sign again? Oh, man, I can't even remember. Oh, yeah, Phil Kessel. He was playing on that line with them, so that's interesting. There's also Pruka, Fanaganov. We don't really need any players of these caliber, I don't think. But if you guys see anything that should maybe add to this team, let me know. We don't really need these kind of depth bottom six options because we have a lot of them and we're trying to get rid of more of them. So I think the only thing we really need is a backup goalie, unless there's a reason to bring in a random dude too, just to help out with like the veteran leadership on this team, because we're still a very young team at this point. So there's that. And in centers, the best available for centers is Kyle Turris. Damn, Kyle Turris really didn't pan out. Huh. David Desharnais, Marc-Antoine Pouliot. I'm seeing a lot of former Oilers or future Oilers at some points, like Mark Letestu, for instance. That's funny. Is there anybody with really good potential in any of these areas? Turris, Kadri, some guy named Rammer. All right, what about left wings? There's Rosa. 2 teams are interested in Rosa. He didn't want to sign his ELC here. Where is he going? It's probably San Jose. He does have organizational interest in us now that we let him go. Same with Nelson, even though we just let him go too. But that's funny, considering Rosa wouldn't accept his ELC. All right, right wing side of things for prospects, nobody. Defense, obviously our prospect Kachuk, and then there's also Ulf Olsen, drafted by the Bruins. And then for goalie prospects, there's not too much. There's Hedman, and who's a medium starter, and Wong, who's a low starter. All right. So the best free agent this year is going to be not Pascal Leclerc. What am I saying? Henrik Lundqvist. Other than that, though, it's a pretty weak free agent class. Jack Johnson, David Booth, stuff like that. So I don't expect much decisions in free agency other than a backup goalie for us. And then in terms of the trading block, is there any crazy names on the trading block this offseason that we could potentially bring in if we want to? I don't think there's really much I would bring in via trade unless it's just picks or prospects, but is there any cool names? Antropov, Bergfors, Higgins, Ryder, and Jersina. Some defensive prospects in Boston. All right. Buffalo has Morgan Riley on the block. Damn. Already. Didn't they just draft him really high up too? Yeah, 4th overall. So they're almost doing what they did to Savoy in real life, which is funny. But he's played 3 games this season only, so they used him as a healthy scratch after a full season in the NHL. So poor Morgan Riley's not getting utilized well in Buffalo. Maybe he'll end up in Toronto. But that's kind of insane that Buffalo's doing that already. I guess he must have requested a trade or something. Penner's on the block. Of course, we used to have Penner in the first year. Marian Hossa's on the trading block. Damn, that's a player I wasn't expecting to be on the block at this stage. But yeah, Hossa's on the block. Damn. Good player. Good player. My favorite player back when I first started getting into hockey. Sean Couturier is on the block as an RFA. That's an interesting one, too. We don't need centers and forwards, but I guess Chicago must be in a cap crisis if they're wanting to get rid of their RFAs. Like Jonathan Baker, I don't know why he's showing up as a Buffalo Sabre. That's kind of strange. Maybe Buffalo's interested in him. I'm not too sure. But, yeah, I think some of these teams might be in morale crises. We'll take a look at that afterwards and see if there's teams up against the cap. But I feel like some teams spend a bit too much money on their players, and then they get cap constraint quite a bit. So, Fabian Brunstrom. I remember when that guy scored a hat trick in Dallas, and I thought that guy was going to be good, and then he didn't end up being that good. Jonathan Bernier is on the block with a 5-year contract, so the Kings re-signed him, but immediately I think want to re-flip him, just because they have Jonathan Quick as the starter, of course. But the Kings are still in a really good spot, even if they do get rid of Bernier. Aside from that, if you guys see anything I missed, let me know, though, because I might miss something. There is prospects on the block, but I probably prefer to trade for picks if we are to trade away some people in the bottom 6 that might not make it. Or we could just see what we have at the start of the season before we decide on making a trade. Wolski and Franz Nielsen on the block in New York. The Rangers still want to get rid of prospects like Bjorkstrand. Interesting. Ottawa, Jeff Delorier is on the block. Don't need to bring him back. Philadelphia, Milan McCulloch, and Zbynek McCulloch. Did they have both these guys signed last offseason? I didn't even remember that. So McCulloch signed there in free agency. I do remember that. Zbynek, did he sign there in free agency? He signed there in free agency a few years ago. I'm surprised nobody mentioned that in the last few episodes. I didn't realize that at all. So Philadelphia Has both the brothers in the McCullochs, so that's pretty awesome. In real life, that would have been kind of an interesting if both of them played together on a team. Randy Jones. Ryan Jones. That is Ryan Jones, our former guy. I was saying Randy Jones is the defenseman just because of Philadelphia and all that. There's a lowly 23-year-old goaltender. I don't think I see much low league goalies, but he's 23 and he's listed as a backup. We do need a backup goaltender. Is Miroslav Ruskevich what we need? He was drafted in year 1. Has played a few years in Adirondack. Has never played an NHL game, but he's on the block as a backup. I feel like that's something I would trade for. Because instead of signing a goalie, we bring in Ruskevich. We will need some cap whales on this team, which kind of sucks. So we probably need to find some people to sign a lot of money to. But Ruskevich is kind of interesting. Or Scott Darling as a backup, but I'd probably prefer the low lead just to see how he actually plays. They signed him to a one-way deal this year, so he might be a backup for them if he doesn't get dealt. Phoenix, Jack Campbell, don't need him. Even though we need a backup, Jack Campbell's not really what I'm looking to get. San Jose has got nothing. St. Louis, yeah, there is definitely prospects, but a lot of them don't have the potential I was hoping for. Josh Harding as a backup's not a bad option either. Has been playing a lot in the AHL. Actually, no, it looks like he's just going to be an AHL goalie this season. But he's been in Tampa a lot the last 2 years. He's only played a little bit of playoff games. I don't really think Josh Harding's what I need, but he's a good backup option. I don't really know if we want to make our team too good this season or not. But there is Pominville, Kuhlman, Radulov. Toronto's still offloading a bunch of players. Damn. Kind of a weird state for Toronto because they added a bunch of players in free agency after they made the playoffs 1 year and then they didn't do that well. So now they've been offloading the last 2 years, which is kind of strange. Vancouver. LaBarbera. That's not even Jason LaBarbera. What the heck? Jaden LaBarbera, his name is. That was weird. That was because Jason LaBarbera played for the Vancouver Canucks. So I saw Jay LaBarbera, but then I saw he was only 21. I was like, what? All right. Washington has some pretty mid prospects. All right. So the trade block's not super intriguing other than that Ruskevich guy. He shouldn't cost a lot. If we went to find trade with the Flyers, Ruskevich, yeah, I think he'd be dirt cheap to bring in just because he's a low league goalie. Let's see. What would it cost to get Ruskevich? Nothing found on an open block. Are you serious? But yeah, he's got very low trade value. We should be able to easily get somebody like that in if we want to. And then the Flyers could run Varlamov and Darling, or they might use Michael Layton, or maybe they'll sign a goalie in free agency. But Ruskevich could be interesting. But like I said, with the cap situation, we are going to need some cap whales probably on this team. You can see we have $23 million in cap space. So if we go to proposed trade, I'm pretty sure we're below the floor. Yeah, we probably need an extra $5+ million in cap space, so our cap. So we could bring back a random guy that we'd let go of, sign him to a $6-7 million deal just to get us to the floor, and then they could play in the AHL if you guys want. But aside from that, let's go back to the contracts. I do want to take a look at the salary cap situation on all these teams and see how much money they have to spend and why certain people are maybe on the block, like Chicago, for instance. Anaheim's got $14 million, so they could definitely sign a lot of players this offseason. Atlanta does not have a lot of cap space. They have only 2.385, so this is a big year for them. If they don't do well, then they're probably going to have to lose some people. Boston's got $3 million only in cap space. They could sign still at least a forward. Buffalo's got 8.2, a lot of cap space there. Calgary's got 6.9. Carolina's got 8.8. Chicago's only got 1.87, so that's why Sean Couturier is on the block. I'm surprised they didn't throw somebody like Bufflin on the block because of that, but if we go to now in the system, yeah, Sean Couturier being on the block, he probably wants a ton of money. He's not going to get paid only 1.8, so he might be a holdout all next year because of that cap space in Chicago, unless they decide to move on from Ribeiro. But he does have a no-trade clause. They've been giving everybody on their team clauses. I didn't even realize that. Holy crap, Chicago. No wonder you're in salary cap hell. Marian Hossa at least doesn't have a clause anymore. But that's a lot of people with clauses. Literally 3, did I say 3? Yeah, 3 no-trade clauses and a bunch of no-movement clauses. which that is tough for them because nobody's going to want to leave that team if they've been so good. So they can't move out really from Ribeiro or Bufflin, even though they want to probably, because both of them are pending free agents. So instead, they have to put the young guys on the block. I mean, they could probably get rid of Stewart and Laterra if they want to, but that might be tough still as well. That's crazy. All right. Colorado has 2.5, so they don't have a lot of cap space to work with. Columbus has $22.34 million of cap space. Columbus is making some interesting decisions. They have some guys signed for a few years as well already. So, yeah, they have a lot of cap space. They could definitely sign some big-name free agents this offseason if they want. Dallas has 6.3. Not bad. They could bring in a lot of players, but they have a lot of pending free agents. Like, most of their team seems like they're up at the end of the season. Strange. Detroit has $13 million. Detroit can make a lot of work this offseason as well. They are a rebuilding team as well. They have Zetterberg and Datsuk still, so maybe some of those guys get moved out later this year, like Datsuk, who's a pending free agent. There's us, of course. The Florida Panthers have 8.8. LA has 8.14. LA is doing a pretty good job with their salary. Pretty good job with that. Minnesota has 4.5. Not really a ton there. Minnesota. Montreal's got 3.6. The Preds have 2.9. Devils 3.7. Okay. 8.6 for the Islanders. They could definitely add some stuff. The Rangers have $3 million, so that's why they let go of, I guess, a couple people like Lundqvist and all that. Because, yeah, they are spending a ton of money on guys like Gaborik and Kucherov and all that. Gaborik especially, because he got $11 million recently. Like, they probably should have let him walk in and re-signed Lundqvist, but now they're probably going to have to deal with, like, Reimer and Enroth, which is not a terrible goaltending tandem, but definitely not as good as King Hank. Or King Henrik, I should say. Ottawa only $3 million in cap space. Philadelphia's got 10.8, so they could add some stuff. Phoenix has 14.835, so there's definitely some teams that have a lot of cap space to work with this offseason. Pittsburgh's got 3.5. San Jose's got 10.985. St. Louis, $7 million. Tampa's got $21 million in cap space. Wow. That's actually quite surprising with the team that they have built up so far. But, yeah. Tampa could be a dark horse this year. That's a lot of cap space. And, I mean, they could definitely throw their name in the hat for some big players this offseason. And they already have a solid goaltending tandem, too. So, shout out to them. $20 million in cap space for the Toronto Maple Leafs, too. And they are trying to offload guys like Radulov, which is funny. But, yeah, the Leafs still have an interesting team at this point. Good goalies, too. Vancouver has $2 million, not really a lot. Washington has 5.7. Not bad. So Washington can still add more. They'd probably need a backup goaltender. They probably do. I don't think a 60 overall makes much sense as a backup. So there is that. Let's go back to the free agency portion briefly, and then I'll be it for this episode. I just want to take a look at the top free agents that have interest. Just a couple of them, see like who's interested in them. Like Jack Johnson, for instance, has interest from the Coyotes. Like I said, they have cap space, so I see it. Brad Richardson. Florida Panthers have interest in him. All right. Mark Stahl, who has interest in Mark Stahl. The Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, they have cap space too. John Michael Lyles has interest from the Calgary Flames. Ville Leno has interest from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wasn't he just on Pittsburgh? I think so. We also have David Desharnais, who has interest from the Montreal Canadiens, so he might return back to Montreal again. And lastly, Tommy Wingels has interest from Anaheim. For goalies, is there any goalies with interest from teams? No. But I wonder where Henrik Lundqvist is going to sign, because not a lot of teams have 6.2 to sign a guy like that. But the teams that will are like guys like Columbus and Phoenix. Will Columbus and Phoenix throw their name in the hat for Henrik Lundqvist? That's an interesting one. Well, anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to free agency. Well, like I said, maybe trade away some people in the bottom six, but we'll get set up for the 2015-16 season. It'll be interesting to see what our team's looking like. I definitely think it's going to be a solid young team. I'm excited to see how it performs next season as well, because I think we're starting to get to that territory where we might be good enough to actually get ourselves a good coach for a roster and just see how our team simulates. If they don't make the playoffs, it's not a huge issue, but it's a good way to build this team up in terms of growth And then maybe this team is going to be good enough to make the playoffs in the next few seasons. So think down below, and I'll see you guys next time.